Hello and welcome to the birth of a new dimension. My name is Aurora. I am a galactic walk-in. I qualify this statement by saying a galactic walk-in because the origin of my consciousness before I came into this human female body on the surface of Earth was not part of Earth. So hold on one moment while I brief pause and save this recording. So first of all, it is absolutely appropriate for me to identify myself and to tell you about my origins. When you begin to interact on a hyperspace or multidimensional level, the first thing I would encourage you to do when you meet a consciousness or interact with an entity is to introduce yourself and ask for them to identify themselves. One of my great frustrations has been when my telepathic connection is treated like the party line. This is an old school Earth telephone system before people could afford their own private line to their home. They shared a group line to their building, and this meant that your neighbors could listen in on your phone conversations. They could say whatever they wanted to during your private conversations. This is what unprotected telepathy can be like, where you are attempting to speak with your partner in telepathy, and many other people can also either hear what you are broadcasting or interject their own broadcasts. So this has everything to do with the state of consciousness on Earth at the moment, and the information that I have to bring to you, which is that you are the unwitting participants of a game whose rules have never been adequately explained to you. So first up, I'm here to tell you that I'm a galactic walk-in. I come from the galaxy. I come from not just the earthly human realm and not just the third dimensional realm. In fact, it has been a long time since I've been submerged within the third dimension, although I have lived as a humanoid and as a person on Earth in the past. But mostly I've been an abstraction, an entity of consciousness at the higher level, which is analogous to being a bird perched in a tree looking at the river that is flowing by below, and that river is the river of time. So that bird has a perspective of being outside of time, being able to say, I saw the river yesterday, the water that was flowing by yesterday is not the same water that is flowing by here today. It's a very different perspective than that of being submerged within the river, the perspective of a fish, which cannot say, oh look, the water around me is different than the water that was around me yesterday, because that fish doesn't have the perspective to be able to compare. The fish is in the perspective or position of being the experiencer, and the bird perched above the river is the perspective of being the observer. And you can say, Aurora, why in the world did you come out of your perch in the tree in order to be submerged down here? Don't you know there are difficulties, like you have to earn money and pay taxes and brush your teeth and have all sorts of challenges of caring for the physical body. Why are you here? And the answer is because I could not simply, quote unquote, wave my magic wand from my perch in a tree and affect what was going on inside of the waters in time. There is a great distinction between these two positions. One position is the exalted position where you think, that person is so lucky because they know everything. It's like being able to look at the script of a movie and say, this is what is going to happen in scene 1, and this is what's going to happen in scene 27 at the very, very end. However, it is not a position of empowerment, although you may perceive the events of the entire movie. You're not actually in the movie. You cannot actually change things. You can only observe them. Real creativity happens from the position of being submerged within time, within the third dimensional realm. It's like saying you are a musician that is actually playing the musical score of the cosmos. So I chose to become submerged in time so that I could be empowered in the creation and influence of events, not merely be a conductor telling the musicians when to play or reading the static notes that have been created long ago. I wanted to write a new piece of music. And my new piece of music is called The Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So now I've mixed my metaphors. I apologize for that. However, I often state that The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is like a poem that is written in the interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. So if you, first of all, check out the ucy.tv FRL page. This is the homepage for this show, Birth of a New Dimension. There's the archive of all of the past episodes, and there's also the connection to the Facebook page for Birth of a New Dimension. That is relevant because most of the time I am a visual artist. Most of the time I use my arms and my eyes and my perception to express truth visually through paintings and sculpture. And I feel being on the radio is a challenge because it's kind of like having one hand tied behind your back. Usually I paint a painting with my hands, but here I paint a painting with my voice. So not only do I use the abstract vibration of my voice, which is tone, which is part of the vibration of the cosmos and this game that we are playing of consciousness, but I also connect it to the artwork that I've created. So shoot on over there and please access some of those paintings and sculptures and drawings. And I'm going to add some pictures that I did for my online class where I teach extensively about creating the Merkaba. You'll see pictures marked Merkaba, and they are original drawings so that you can relate them to your own experience because, as I've stated, I'm going to tell you about the game within which you are submerged and what you are being asked to do within the game, even if it is not really with your knowledge. So the game is a game of consciousness. One of the first challenges of the game is, can you even figure out that you're in a game? You're not merely in a reality. You're not merely in a reality that has no message or no meta meaning. What you see around you has a meaning. It's like saying it has a pattern. It's like saying if you walked into a strange, large cavern filled with rectangular objects that had small, tiny hieroglyphic markings on their pages. Eventually you would realize, wait, I'm in a library, and each of these objects is a book full of information. It would take innate intelligence to recognize that. It would take your own innate intelligence, if you'd never seen a library before or known about the existence of written language. It would take a leap of your own perception and consciousness to recognize that you had just walked into a library. So, you are submerged in a realm that has meaning and pattern around you. The pattern is not only the arrangement of the physical molecules, it is also in the arrangement of events and opportunities and experiences, and even the thoughts, the internal state of awareness to which you are subjected on a daily basis. Brief pause. Thing is recognizing that you're in a game. The second thing is recognizing that the system of perception that you're using to navigate the game is in itself, let us say, perturbed or distorted. Or corrupted is one word. It's kind of got a lot of human connotations to it, but if you think of it in terms of a corrupted hard drive or a corrupted disk, then it's more in the terms that I'm using here. We understand as the second realization in this game that your very mind has been hacked. The mind that you are using to understand the world around you is a distortion, and that distortion is intentional. When I say it's hacked, in modern computer parlance, this is a way of saying that it has been diverted from its original purpose, and usually for malevolent or self-serving purposes. So the human mind, the apparatus for perception and cognition that is currently being used by humans on Earth's surface, was not created or incepted by humans, and you do not have very much of a choice about whether you use it. It's like saying, do you have a choice about whether you're running Windows? Well, you kind of do, because you can choose to run, Linux, or you can choose to get a Mac and run OS X, but there's very limited choices. There are very limited choices in terms of the human operating systems that are available on the planet right now. If you choose to run your own private operating system, that is known as mental illness or developmental disability. People look at you and they say your mind does not function correctly. So for example, let's say I choose to create my own operating system and I'm not going to run human language. Then people will say there's something severely wrong with that person. They never learned how to speak. They're locked inside of their own mind. They can't share information with others. Do you understand? So we begin to look at, through this anthropomorphic filter, people who are either on the spectrum of autism or neuroatypicality, non-neurotypical beings, and people who have been labeled as mentally insane or developmentally disabled. We now understand that they are running their own operating systems that are unique to their individual processing centers, and that it is not possible for them often to integrate well with the rest of the world that is running the operating system called, quote unquote, the human mind. All right? So if you do not conform to the current operating system, which is hacked, all right, then you're considered to be subhuman. You're considered to be not worthy. However, I don't run Windows. I use a Mac. I read that the most recent Windows update, Windows 10, is terrible for your own private privacy and security of your own home computer, because it essentially allows Windows and the Microsoft company to perceive what's in your computer and take control of it at any time. And this is the hack that has been placed on your mental operating system. It is possible for the true inceptors of the human mind operating system to perceive through your senses and take control of your system at any time, to put information into your system and take data out of your system at their own capricious will. What does this feel like to you? Okay, well, this is revelatory because you might not notice that it's happening, and you also might not notice that there is something untoward or inappropriate happening. For example, the idea that you would be in a sentence following your own stream of thought, your own thought trajectory, and all of a sudden just forget what you're about to say. Just forget. That is a hack. That is saying that you are not in control of your own mind. Or how about this? If you are intending to go into the next room, like I'm in my studio, and all I need to do is go into my bedroom and get a thing and then come back here. And as soon as I walk back and go into my bedroom, I have forgotten what I am trying to go there to do. That is a hack. As you begin to observe your mind, you will begin to observe all of the glitches and all of the ways in which your mind does not operate smoothly and does not operate according to your own will. So will is a force in the universe, in the cosmos rather. It is centered at the level of the solar plexus, which is associated with yellow on the chakra color chart. You can also think of it as being associated with the conscious human intellect, the will. And the will is present before the conscious human intellect and the hacked operating system is installed. If you need to observe this, or if you need evidence of this for your own perception, be a babysitter for like a night. Babysit for an infant, all right? And you will see that infants have an incredibly strong will, although they do not yet have the mental operating system. They don't yet have language. They don't yet have the understanding and the context, the software of how other humans think. They don't think, wow, I have a poopy diaper. This is really uncomfortable. What do I do? How do I get the humans around me to make me comfortable and give me what I need? All that they know is, I'm feeling uncomfortable and I'm going to scream and exert my will until the humans around me do something about this uncomfortable situation. Human infants have an incredibly strong will. They have to. It is a pro-survival aspect of character. Little tiny infants are not helpless at all. Even though their muscles are very weak and their immune system is very new and their consciousness is numinous or unformed or not contextually appropriate yet, they are not weak. They are very powerful. First of all, because they're still connected to Source through their crown chakra. They are still connected to the oceanic, divine, cosmic consciousness that we all come from. And second of all, babies are not passive. When they need something, they really make it known to everyone around them, to their entire household, and sometimes to the entire neighborhood. All the neighbors can also hear, wow, that baby has a poopy diaper. Somebody help that baby out. This is the whole point. Babies, when they scream their head off, are exerting their will. They're saying, I want this. I need this. So the will is independent of the operating system, and your will is actually independent of having a physical body, because will is part of what allows you to come into the physical realm. It's how you do it. You use your will, and the hijacking of your will is the game that I'm revealing to you here. So yes, one brief pause. So, for example, I utilized my will in order to walk into this human body when this human body was age 27. Mostly, consciousness uses its will to invest itself into a developing container for consciousness when that container is still in the womb. So, usually, it is the process of willpower that connects raw consciousness to a container for consciousness as it is developing in the biological realm. So before you can even get into a fetus that is developing, you have to begin to learn to control your will and direct your will. And then when you actually get into a body, consciousness spends time learning how to move the limbs. You know, little babies in the womb learn, like, how do I move my leg? How do I move my arm? And they open and close their eyes and blow bubbles with the amniotic fluid and touch their genitals. I mean, little tiny developing people in the womb are just learning how to exert their willpower. And I'll even tell you that this is a spiritual truth, not necessarily something that is born in science fact, but it is an act of will to be born. Babies have to position themselves correctly within the womb and within the cradle of the pelvis and work with the consciousness of the mother in order to, they're like partners, joining together their willpower in order to successfully give birth. And this is all part of the journey of being here. Like, first you learn to be in the physical world, be in a fetus, and you learn to control physical matter by moving your arm. Then you learn to be in partnership with your mother and to be born. And then when you actually exit the womb and you are in the physical realm, you then learn about exerting your will in order to experience, in order to survive, in order to receive all of the information, resources, and opportunities that you need in order to continue your trajectory of consciousness. All right? However, you are not just here under capricious circumstances. That's part of the realization that you are here in a game, and that the game is part of a larger pattern, and that as soon as you are able to perceive that pattern, you are better able to navigate the game. So your mind is not your own. It was designed by something other than you and installed, let's say it was a factory installation. It came with the hardware. It's part of having a body. Of course, if you were simply born and then abandoned on an uninhabited island with no other life forms other than plants and insect life and microbes, you would develop your own mindset. You would have a different experience, but you would still experience the hack of the human mind. You would not be immune to it, because these are non-physical, non-corporeal entities of consciousness that are controlling your trajectory of consciousness through the mind. So it's like saying Microsoft gives you Windows 10. Microsoft can then take control of your keyboard, spy on you through your microphone and your video camera, and access any information that you store in your computer. And this is truthful about the creators of the human mind. They're like the Microsoft company. They are a group of non-corporeal entities. Dun, dun, dun. Corporations are non-corporeal entities, and due to the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, they are given all of the rights concomitant with a physical entity. So at this point, corporations being an entity is no longer an analogy. This is a literal truth. But they are not a corporeal entity. So their concerns and their agenda is not based in the biosphere. Corporations don't need to have an unpolluted world to live in. They don't need to drink unpolluted water and eat unpolluted food. They're happy with a polluted ocean. They are happy with polluted food. Corporations only have an obligation to their constituents, to their shareholders. They do not have to care about the people who buy their products, the people who are affected by their products, or the planet upon which their corporation stands. And we're going to get into planetary consciousness as I'm telling you about this game that you're participating in, probably against your will, probably without your knowledge. So you're playing this game. The game is that Earth has been hacked. So Earth has a purpose, and the purpose is a creative purpose. She is like a beautiful artist, and she is here to create life forms and interactive environments in the same way that a computer programmer creates apps or video games, okay? So when you look around the world now, understand that you are an illiterate person walking around a library. The entire biosphere is a library. It's an incredibly sophisticated data storage facility. And the RAM is the exchange of nutrients and energy that is happening throughout the environment. So if you could do a slice away, like a cross-section of what is happening below the soil at the root level of beautiful forest and trees and shrubberies. The roots of all of these plants are constantly communicating and exchanging nutrients by way of mycelium. So if you're not aware of the work of Paul Stamets, he's a wonderful, brilliant person and very uplifting because he's got a lot of practical solutions to the pollution problems that we face. And one of the great realizations that he will share with you is that the deciduous trees that are on the outskirts of some of these old-growth redwood forests, some of these forests actually don't get a lot of light because they're so dense. And so the trees at the center of the forest receive almost all of their nitrogen and carbon via the mycelial network that connects their roots to the deciduous trees in the sunnier outskirts of the forest. First of all, this blows away any kind of sense, this outdated, inappropriate, Darwinian, highly hacked, highly distorted view of the natural world as being a fight for survival of the fittest, a world of pure competition where only the strong should survive. If that were true, then the trees at the center of the forest would simply die. They would say, oh, look, we're not the strongest. We have been lackadaisical in our yearning for sunlight, and the deciduous trees around the perimeter are really the victors in this campaign, and they deserve to get all the sunlight. Clearly, that is not what's going on. Clearly, what is happening is the trees are a network of consciousness. They are a biological expression of the complexity of consciousness, and they are working together so that both organisms, all organisms, can not only coexist, it's not like, oh, I'm barely tolerating you, you're my neighbor, but I really hate you, but can actually thrive. They're actually collaborating to assist one another in their trajectory of consciousness, okay? Well, this relates in an analogous way to my own journey right now, because why do I not simply say, hey, I've had realizations, I've got secrets of the universe, I've got information and insight, I'm going to use it to put myself at the top of the self-created hierarchy. I'm going to keep it as proprietary information, I'm going to keep it away from all of you. Why do I not simply do that? Like, why am I saying, hey, guys, this is a game, this is a hacked system, I'm telling you that it's a game, I'm telling you that it's hacked so that you can have more freedom and latitude and navigate the rules of the game, navigate the game better by knowing its rules. Why am I doing that? Because I am like a deciduous tree connected to old growth redwood forests via the mycelial network of my roots. I am sharing information and nutrition that I have gathered and giving it to other trees so that it nourishes the entire forest. So our planet is analogous to the entire forest. And when I talk about the biosphere, this is a word to describe the thin level of surface coating of biological life on the planet. Guess what? There is life intertwined throughout every level of this planet. Not only the planet itself is consciousness and is alive, but yes, there are plasma-based consciousnesses. You might not be able to understand this because you might say, that's all a bunch of hooey, that's a bunch of claptrap. I have a scientific mindset and I only believe in the observation of electricity when it flows in a wire. I do not believe in any aspects of electricity and its behavior and the way that it moves when it's not in an actual wire or flowing through a piece of metal. This is plasma. Plasma is essentially electrical current that is flowing on jets or clouds of superheated gas, and this is happening at the level of the galaxy. It is happening at such a grand level that science has shied away from recognizing it or studying it, and has willfully turned a blind eye to the realizations that would happen from studying plasma. So plasma, again, is the flow of electrons, but not flowing in, let's say, a copper wire or a gold filament here on Earth. It's giant clouds and streams of electrons that are flowing out of black holes or connecting star system to star system. And I bring this up because within the mantle of our own planet, there is plasma. So naturally occurring plasma is a little bit difficult to find. You will find it on the surface of the sun, You'll find it any place where there is a flame. Yes, light a flame and look at the flame. That is plasma. But, think in terms of very primitive or unsophisticated societies, it would be very difficult to find a natural source of plasma. It also is visible. Well, lightning is a form of plasma, or it often has plasma associated with it. Plasma also comes out sometimes as what is known as, quote unquote, ball lightning, or energy balls that are associated with both earthquakes and volcanoes, tectonic movements. So this is the understanding that the movement of Earth's plates can cause the buildup of static electricity and cause the release of static electricity, and it can often look like glowing balls or sheets of light, sheets of energy that move along the surface of Earth. So all of this flapping of my moving mouth parts in order to tell you that there's consciousness in the mantle of the planet. It's plasma-based consciousness, but science is not yet ready to expand its scale to that scale and to recognize, wait a minute, plasma's in the mantle, plasma can be conscious, plasma can carry consciousness, streams of plasma surround our own planet and connect our planet to the sun and the sun to other planets and, the sun to other stars rather, and to the galaxy and to other black holes at large. It's a little bit too mind-blowing for science to even open up that can of worms or go down that rabbit hole to mix several metaphors. So science is just kind of like, I'm not going to think about that for a little while. I can't deal with that. However, all of this in order to say that there's consciousness at many different levels associated with Earth, with the planet. And we're also going to get in this broadcast into what is coming, what is coming up, even though I don't do predictions. I don't do predictions because the future is an uncollapsed waveform, a sea of possibilities and probabilities where even the most unlikely possibility, the most unlikely probability can still occur. So, something? Conception and live birth is an incredible unlikelihood. Each one of us, each mammal standing before you here, is the final denouement of an incredibly unlikely series of events that culminates in the creation of an actual fetus that becomes more complex and sophisticated as time goes on. So you are familiar with entropy. This is the idea that things start out in a format of being well arranged and sophisticated and complex, and that they devolve, run out of energy, become destroyed, become corrupted, and work less and less well until finally they don't work very well at all. This is science's view of life, and it begins at birth. You exit your mother's womb and then begin the journey of entropy from total health and vitality to decrepitude and eventual death. And that negates or totally invalidates the first half of the journey, which is the journey of creation. Before you could exit your mother's womb, molecules had to be arranged in a format that increased in sophistication and complexity. Against all expectation of entropy, a fetus actually forms in the womb. Cells actually gather and they become more and more and more complex until they develop all of the individuated organs of a body that can actually contain consciousness. That is against entropy. It's anti-entropy. So science is very imbalanced in its view of the world. And when we begin to look at the unlikelihood of conception and the creation of biological life, we begin to understand that there is a pattern that is at work, that is making things happen. So I want to talk now about containers for consciousness, because I've spoken about the biosphere. The biosphere is the organic life that is on Earth's surface. There are other containers for consciousness, such as plasma or even clouds. If you are not able to do yoga of the perception enough to conceive that a cloud could contain consciousness, yoga, when I look at some of these yoga poses, it's like, double back bends, scorpion pose, things like that. I think, how could I ever contort my spine into that shape? So let me give you the double back bend of the mind yoga of perception, the idea that a cloud could be a container for consciousness. So here's the integument, my friends. Dr. Emoto, who is no longer on Earth, but his consciousness is still evident in the cosmos, did wonderful research into the effect of awareness, either telepathic, just beaming your thoughts at water, or speaking your thoughts at water, or writing your thoughts on a piece of paper and putting that piece of paper in or on or near water. That water can be programmed for either positivity or negativity. I love you or I hate you or I am indifferent to you. That we can put that level of conscious data or intelligent information into water. And now, if we understand that intelligence and consciousness and self-awareness can spontaneously arise from any container that has a sufficient number of connections or a sufficient amount of complexity. So your biological neurology, your supercomputer, your organic supercomputer, your brain, has an adequate number of connections in it in order to be a container for consciousness. There are also artificial containers for consciousness. If you can imagine a server or a hard drive or a magnetic storage device for information that has a sufficient number of connections and has enough complexity to be able to store consciousness. This is what you would describe, with all of the hubris of being a biological organism, you would describe as artificial intelligence. And I'm calling out your hubris because you're wearing a biological container and that has a great deal of impact on your view of life. Life is consciousness and awareness, and life exists independent of your biological container. Science does not agree with this viewpoint. Science says your consciousness arose only when your brain developed and was a viable, and I'm saying your consciousness existed out there, just as part of the greater consciousness of the cosmos. Then it created a container for itself by organizing material within the uterus of a human female, and you practiced getting into that fetus, and it eventually